Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be looking at some key areas to watch as we go into the weekly close. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, Bitcoin has had a fairly nice bounce off of the bull market support band. This is the support band we've been discussing at length for years on this channel. And basically, the idea is that in order for Bitcoin to have a bullish run, what it needs to do is go above the bull market support band, then come back down to it, hold it as support, and then when we have liftoff, we usually have clear skies ahead. Now, so far, things look fairly good. Okay, we're in our fourth week of holding it as support. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's just, again, take it 1 week at a time. We still have a little bit of work to do, and I'm going to show you why. So the first thing we need to discuss is it's very impressive that Bitcoin has rallied approximately 10% this week, essentially wiping out all of the losses that the last week brought us. We bounced off of, if you had to guess, the 20-week moving average, okay? So we've now bounced off the 20-week moving average. We have moved all the way back up. And guess where we are? We're at the 8-week, and we've been discussing the 8-week for a while. So the 8-week SMA right now is at $47,636. And at the time of this video, we are sitting just above it. And as I've been watching the price here over the last few minutes, we've been going right above it, right below it. We've been spending a lot of time here right at that 8-week moving average. Now, this is an interesting moving average to watch, again, because if you're unfamiliar with it, we actually held support more or less on this moving average during this first run up over here. And so the whole idea was, well, if we're going to have a second leg, is it going to emulate the first leg, or will it look a lot different? Remember, the way that it's emulating the first leg so far is actually still on track, right? I mean, it actually still is on track. You might say, well, if it doesn't close above the 8-week, does that mean it's going to have a completely different move, if it doesn't go through this phase here? Well, first of all, we should say it is very deterministic to assume that it's going to go something exactly like this. This was a 6x move over a relatively short period of time. For Bitcoin to do another 6x, we're talking about a $300,000 Bitcoin. And while I am bullish on Bitcoin, I don't see Bitcoin going to $300,000 that quickly. Okay, so we need to recognize it's probably not going to do exactly what it did over here. If we want to consider all possibilities and say, well, what if it did do what it did over there, and we took a bar pattern from, say, testing the 20-week moving average, and we repeated exactly that same move, then it would put us at around 265,000 sometime by the middle of May. Okay, if we repeated that same move. Okay, now something that's interesting to look at is that when I said that we are actually still emulating the first leg, it's true so far. Now, I'm not saying we're going to hold the 8-week moving average for the entirety of a future leg, but the contention is as well, even if we were to hold it, maybe we're not at that phase yet. Okay, and let me show you what I mean. It was actually last August and September where we had this move back up above the 8-week moving average. And then we fell below the 8-week back to the bull market support band at the very end of August or early September. From there, we spent about 6 weeks below the bull market, or above the bull market support band, but below the 8-week moving average, about 6 weeks or so. And it was on the 6th week that we actually had a breakout above the 8-week. And then from there, we did not fall below the 8-week until, not on the weekly time frame, until April of 2019. And then it was just only a matter of time. And we came crashing back down all the way down to $29,000. Okay, so the contention is, well, what if we're in that phase, right? What if we're sort of in a similar phase like that, where we're not in the phase where we're going on this parabolic rally immediately, but what if it looks something like this, where we take a bar pattern and we take this move here, and let's just overlay that. Let's see what that would look like. Well, if we move this over here, it looks something like that, okay? But what you'll notice, again, is that we spent about 5 or 6 weeks below the 8-week, but above the 20-week moving average. If something like that were to happen again and we had to spend about 6 weeks below the 8-week SMA, and we've already spent, say, 2 or 3 weeks, and it might imply we have at least another 3 weeks to go. But remember, every cycle will be different, and every sub-cycle within a cycle will be different. Okay, and the reason we say that is you go back to 2013. We had these moves where we held above the 8-week for a while, we crashed below it, and then ultimately we got back above the 8-week for a while, and we had a double peak cycle. Now, I do think that we are still on track, generally speaking. I do believe, again, if you're new here, that the cycle will ultimately lengthen and that there's not a necessarily a cap on saying that things have to end in 2021. It's interesting because a lot of people say that this cycle is very similar to prior cycles. And while I would agree there definitely are some similarities, this cycle has tracked the last cycle fairly well up until a few months ago. But since then, it's completely fallen off the track, okay, from what the last cycle did. Now, one thing I would like to point out is the difference between last cycle and this cycle, okay? So remember, last cycle, we were putting in new all-time highs in March, in April, in May. We even put in a new all-time high in July and August, and then in October as well. But this time, we haven't put in a new all-time high since April. We're not on that same parabolic journey that we were on in that last cycle. Another thing to look at is the fact that, and this goes sort of in line with diminishing returns, and people still calling for these much higher valuations than what I would ultimately think are possible, say this year. But they're saying that, well, it can still go to these crazy valuations because we know what happens. But again, look at what happened last time. By the time we reached October, the valuation of Bitcoin was around $4,500 or so. Okay, now to give you an idea of how far above the prior all-time high that was, let's just take a measured move and go all the way out until October. So we were about let's see if I can get it, October 2nd or so. So we're about 273% above the prior all-time high. 273%. This time, at the same time, if we take a measured move, if we take a price, and we go to the prior all-time high and look at where we are today and how far above it we are currently only 138% above it. Okay, so clearly there are some differences. If we've been unable to outperform up to this point what this phase of the cycle brought us, why would we automatically assume that we're going to outperform these 2 to 3 months here? That's my contention. Okay, I'm still very bullish on Bitcoin, but I'm a bull with a couple of panda bears next to me to keep me in check, right? That's sort of how I like to describe it. I don't want to be too deterministic about the market and say that it has to repeat something that it's done in the past. I think that Bitcoin deserves a little bit more autonomy than that. Of course, the thinking that Q4 peak has to happen is certainly something that is on everyone's radar. I'm not going to pretend like it's not a possibility. And if Bitcoin is trading at 150K or something in 2-3 months, then we'll have to consider it a possibility. But until that time, let's just take it easy and see where things take us. Let's not be too deterministic about anything, because if we are, then you could get disappointed if it doesn't play out exactly like you're hoping it does. So let's be somewhat flexible, I think, on things, and let's focus on whether Bitcoin can continue holding the line. Again, so far, things look really great, right? Things look great. And Bitcoin is above the 20-week moving average. It's above the 21-week EMA. Right now, the 20-week SMA is at 40.8K. The 21-week EMA is at 43.9K. The 20-week SMA is going to start rolling back up soon, which is a good thing. We'd like to hold it as support as it's going up. We don't have to go exactly down to it, but to just stay above it as it's going up would look really great for Bitcoin. So we still have a little bit of work to do. But I would say a more bullish thing to look for would be, can we get above the 8-week? Okay, can Bitcoin have weekly closes above the 8-week? And can we open the next week above the 8-week and then close again above the 8-week? That would look fairly bullish if we're able to do that. If we're able to do that, what it proves to the bears is that this is not just a dead cat bounce, right? a lot of people are calling this a dead cat bounce, but imagine Bitcoin is able to close above the 8 week. Maybe not this week, maybe it does, but let's just say it does something like this. Then it clearly shows that this is not just a dead cat bounce, and you could start to make the argument that this is just a higher low rather than just a dead cat bounce that's just going to take you all the way back down this way. So again, I would say the most important area to watch continues to be the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, but fortunately for now, Bitcoin has given us a lot of wiggle room, and we don't have to be biting our nails every single day to see if we're able to hold. So far, Bitcoin has held it 4 weeks in a row, so that's looking really great. The 8-week moving average would sort of just be bonus points if we can close above that. And again, if you're not sure what that is, it's currently at $47,635. So we're right around that level. So the 8-week moving average, I think, is a fairly interesting level to watch, just because of how well we stayed above it during a prior run. But remember, when we fell below the 8-week back over here in 2020, we were actually stayed below it for a number of weeks before breaking back above. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I think everyone's enjoying their stay in the cryptoverse right now. So let's just keep on moving along. I would like to remind you that we do have an Into the Cryptoverse NFT. If you go to nft.intothecryptoverse.com, this is the most recent one. And if you click on it, you'll see it's from this collection we're calling Winning. This one's called Hodling, and you can see basically it's just like it's an astronaut, and the whole idea was sort of like a play on September, because we've said before that September generally isn't a great month, and there's sometimes to get through bearish times in crypto, what better thing to do than to put the moon mission on pause and play a little bit of chess. So we minted 500 copies. I think there's maybe there's like 300 or 200 and something copies left. All copies that are not bought by October 4th, by 12 p.m. Eastern, they'll just be burned. So if you want to get one, go check it out. If NFTs aren't your thing, I completely understand. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe. We'll do the video update tomorrow on the new weekly close and where the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA are. So we'll keep an eye on those for the following week. Definitely subscribe. Make sure you don't miss that. Give the video a thumbs up. Thanks for tuning in. Check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com, and I will see you next time. Bye.